And that's a 16 for initiative. And that'll be it for this week. I'll see you guys next week for the Battle of Stench Hollow. But we've still got 2 hours to go. Well, yeah, but I've still got to roll initiative for each of 500 guards, 300 orcs, and a group of centaurs that comes in at the end as a surprise. Oops. Well, anyway, they all get turns too. Helm's Deep, the Pelennor Fields, Sodden Hill, Winterfell, Geonosis, King's Landing. Epic battles with thousands of participants setting the stage for major turning points in the plot and engaging the players deeply in a fantasy quest. Unfortunately, in 5th edition, if you want to get each foe realistic and make it a real threat, they're going to need their own turns. They're going to need their own damage. They're going to need their own rolls. And players have a hard enough time waiting for each other member of the campaign to finish their turns. Try waiting for 1,000 orcs. In this video, I'm going to discuss 5 ways to avoid the simple mathematical calculations, thousands of dice ways of running a battle, and I'm going to cover 2 ways of actually doing a large-scale battle and involving your players on the very front lines, making sure your players can make a difference in the battle without necessarily engaging every single foe that they're handed. Of course, before watching this, you might want to ask, does this battle need to end a certain way for my story to progress a certain way? If it does, you might want to skip the last part where I leave it up to some random chance, and you might want to use more of a narrative approach instead of letting the players make their own individual choices and consequences. But if you really want to let the players choose how the battle goes, the first 5 ways should do it well, and if you want to leave it up to random chance, I've got a special ton of math at the end of this video. In 1453, the Ottoman force under Mehmed II brought a massive cannon to the siege of Constantinople. Called the Basilica, it was able to hurl 600-pound shot into the defensive walls. Your party's quest may be to capture or destroy such a weapon before it can turn the tide of battle. Send the party away from the battlefield to capture a weapon, a wizard, or a warship. When they return, the battle has been won thanks to their efforts. For lack of a nail, the shoe was lost. For lack of a massive cannon, the battle was lost. 'Twas the night before battle, and all through the tent blood covered the walls, and the general's throat was rent. Killing a leader before a battle can shatter the chain of command and leave an army in disarray. Sneak into camp and copy the battle plans. Spread rumors or dissension. Cast invisibility on yourself and walk around singing Wonderwall in a high falsetto. Soldiers are a superstitious bunch, and a DM should award ingenuity for disturbing morale before the battle is begun. Of course, walking directly into an enemy camp is risky business, and a TPK is always a possibility. The Battle of Thermopylae was lost due to a Greek turncoat named Ephialtes revealing a path around the Greek forces. Perhaps in your epic battle, the fate of the forces is determined either by an elite strike force, your party, taking a hill, a path, or defending a hill or a path. Defending a bridge against foes for 10 turns so that the army can retreat is a heroic narrative, even if it is an ultimate defeat. In the biblical Battle of Ai, the Israelites staged a flying column maneuver to allow elite troops to infiltrate the city. These troops set fire to Ai, which disheartened the enemy, just in time for the flying column to abandon their perceived route and turn back to fight. All war is deception, according to Sun Tzu, and maybe your general has amassed his troops just to draw the guard out so that your party can infiltrate the throne room and steal or kill something. Taking another tack, perhaps your army is the contents of a wooden owlbear statue left as a so-called gift by the departing forces. Giving each baddie 1 hit point is an easy way to avoid tracking HP and minimizes one issue of epic battles, damage calculations. Of course, once the wizard realizes this, she can reenact that scene from Iron Man where he takes down half a dozen terrorists at once using magic missile. Or she can blow a hole in enemy lines with a fireball. The DM Lair, link in description, gives a good alternative where instead of 1 hit point, enemies require 1 good hit to knock them down. This alternative allows your players to wade into combat and feel like heroes. Of course, if you want the real Sturm und Drang of a massive set-piece battle, there are 2 ways I would recommend running it before rolling initiatives for each fighter. Choose a single type of foot soldier and have all enemies be that one type. Tell your players where they are on the battlefield. Are they in the center of the ranks? Are they on a flank? Are they doing the rear guard action? plan beforehand roughly how long the battle should take in terms of turns. At the beginning of each initiative round, describe the battlefield. What else is going on while the players are facing foe after foe after foe? During the player turns, describe their hits, describe their misses, and any foes that go down. For any spells that require multiple foes to make saving throws, just roll a single d20. Add the modifier and use this chart to determine what percent of foes made the save. Apply that percentage to the foes in the area of effect. If your fireball has 16 foes and they managed 75% of them will have made the save, then that means 12 will make the save and the other ones will take full damage. Track hit points for about 10 foes at a time, so that 16 might be a bit much. Refresh the foes each time one of them falls. Others are going to fill the line. If the goal is for the players to actually swing the battle, let them play until the battle swings. If the goal is to have them participate in a narrative event, narrate accordingly. The battle does not need to be until the last orc bleeds out. Losses of about 10% can make an enemy rout, especially if they're applied very quickly. Only zealots and undead should require casualties of more than 50%. And of course, with the undead, it's 100+%. Give the players time after the battle to describe how their character reacted to the death and destruction. This can be a golden opportunity for excellent roleplay and character development. The DM Lair video that I've put in the link below gives a very good way of determining the effects of a battle using a few d20s and a single roll. If you want to leave the outcome of a battle up to a single roll, I would highly recommend that. But some of us are math addicts, and we came here for the real number crunching. And here we have an example of me trying to do that. So what we have here is we've got two sides, side 1 for red and side 2 for blue. Side 1 includes soldier type, guard, and this is just your simple guard from the monster manual with 11 hit points, an AC of 16, a +3 to hit doing 4 damage per roll. The orcs, on the other hand, that are facing off with them, they have hit points of 15, AC of 13, a +5 to hit, doing 9 damage on a hit. For the side 1, I've given them 500 soldiers, and then I've given them a hit point pool, which in this case is the number of soldiers times the total number of hit points. The orcs, I have done the same, giving them 300 soldiers with 15 hit points, each for a total of 4,500. What I've done then is I have given them 1 to hit 2. So side 1 to hit side 2 would have to roll a 10. With their +3 modifier, they will meet the armor class of the orc and they will do damage. What I take this as is with a single roll, 50% of them are going to be hitting if I roll with a 10. And I have added the modifiers accordingly so that higher numbers mean a higher percentage hit, with 20 ending up being all of them hit. Note that this is not a critical hit because I'm excluding critical hits and critical failures. They're just not for non-player characters. For the orcs, they actually have to roll an 11 with their +5 to hit, but the armor class of the guards being 16, they're going to have a harder time hitting, meaning even with a 20, not all of them are necessarily going to hit. This begins to matter more when you have larger differences in what the modifiers are. So I rolled some beforehand, and the soldiers, the guards, they rolled a 15. What that means is that 75% of them are going to hit. So I'd go down to the hit pool here, and that's going to be equal to 45,000 minus the number of guards times this modifier at 15 times the amount of damage. And you can put this in parentheses if you want, and that would be giving the number of guards are going to make, certain amount of them are going to make hits, and that's much damage per hit taken away from the total hit pool. And that gives you 3,000 because they're doing a lot of damage. The orcs rolled a 5, which would mean a miss in a single orc v guard encounter, but this means actually 20% of them will still make the hit. So of course I multiply some numbers. I'm going to take the hit point pool, and this is going to be minus the number of orc soldiers times the hit modifier times the damage per orc dealing that. And there we go. Now I want to know how many soldiers are still standing. So that's going to be equal to this total number divided by the initial number times the initial number. 451, we'll say. How many of the orcs are still standing? Well, that's going to be equal to the hit point pool divided by the hit point maximum times the initial number of soldiers. 200 are remaining. So they've already taken a third of losses, and you can determine at this point if losing a third of the soldiers in the first 6 seconds of combat makes them rout or not. So at this point, you would say we have a single soldier type versus a single soldier type. If you wanted to make multiple types of soldier, where you have guards and paladins versus orcs and trolls, you will have to decide how many paladins are engaging orcs. That's going to be 3 to hit 4. You have to make another column here, another bunch of numbers here. Basically, it gets exponentially more complicated with every new type of foe you add. This is something you could do beforehand so that you know how many are going to be going down. Then you just actually change the hit points based on how many your players are hitting. So plus, maybe they do 48 damage in that turn. And that will change the numbers accordingly. So this allows your players to start making a difference in a battle that you have already calculated. During the session, seeing if it changes the overall hit pool can make the players have a difference without you needing to do a lot of math. And if you have a computer with Excel, just use that. For an army made up of Ents, Elvish archers, human paladins, rangers, fighting orcs, hobgoblins, and trolls, you know what? You're going to get what you asked for with this. You bought yourself a whole bag of mathematical pain. Maybe you let your players just do an assassination instead.